Hi all, so I'm just jumping on here right quick to introduce this next episode of Questions on My Mind. I am talking to the lovely Helen Mawson. It's about kinesiology, but the conversation goes so much further than that. And when I'm recording these podcasts, I do tend to let the conversation go where it feels it needs to go. And in this episode, we go into talking about how the body keeps the score, the information we can get from the body, how trauma can get locked in the body, and how we can work to release that and heal ourselves. So please stay tuned for this fascinating episode, which is up now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Questions on My Mind. And I've got the lovely Helen Mawson with me today. Many years ago, I saw a kinesiologist for the first time, and she was like, or she was actually, turned out to be a shaman. Um, and I can't remember who recommended her to me, but it was my first foray into anything like this. So I ended up calling her a witch doctor because she did all this sort of energy work and stuff. But it was totally fascinating. So this conversation's going to be about kinesiology because I found Helen, who is another kinesiologist, and I just want to dive deep into this kinesiology topic because it shows to me the wisdom of the body and the information that the body holds within it. So please stay tuned for this conversation. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we are going to dive straight in. So welcome, Helen.
Hi, Jackie. Thanks for having me. It's really great to be here and having this chat today. Looking forward
Yeah,
to it.
I am really looking forward to this conversation because the kinesiologist I talked about, that was many years ago, and she ended up retiring. And I was gutted because
Oh
she
no,
was absolutely brilliant, and I've not found anyone so far until now.
we're
Um,
all gutted when
who,
when these people retire, aren't we? I know a few of mine have retired, and I'm like, no, who am I going to see now?
yeah, yeah. So she used to I didn't really understand how it worked. It was just this woman did what she did. So she would sort of hold my arm, do certain things, let it go limp, do this, and she would just find blockages
Mhm.
in my body, or she would test whether certain foods were okay for me, or certain supplements, or whatever. And I worked with her for a while, and I did get some really good results.
Fantastic.
So, what is actually happening with kinesiology?
So we basically, because there are lots of, just to say, there are lots of different types of kinesiology out there now. They basically stem from, oh, you're testing my knowledge now. I'm having to go back. A professor of chiropractic, I believe, Dr. George Goodhart, and he basically started this investigatory into his own modality of how the body responded in the presence of certain substances and things. And he started to, he founded muscle testing basically. So, and he found muscle testing, how you could test a muscle, like what you've just said, Jackie, your
Yeah.
kinesiologist was testing your arm and having a dialogue with the body. So it's basically a biofeedback mechanism. So from that, then lots of different kinesiologies have been born. My particular training, my lineage is health kinesiology, which is a modality in itself, basically. So you've then got things like educational kinesiology, which is used a lot in schools, colleges, and things like that. can treat great things with ADHD, autism stuff, all of those things. And then lots of other kinesiologies came from that. Touch for Health is another one that I trained in. But health kinesiology really is my main modality. I trained in it about 23 years ago. And I think all kinesiologists would say the same thing. They bring lots of their knowledge, lots of their training over the years into their modality as a kinesiologist. So you kind of develop your own ways of working, really.
So is it then a diagnostic tool?
We say no, it's not a diagnostic tool. It's a way of us tuning into the body and having a dialogue and a bio feedback mechanism to see actually where the imbalance is in your body. So yeah, clients do come to me and say, "Can you diagnose?" And I always say, "No, I'm not a doctor. I'm not medically trained to that level. I can't diagnose, so we don't diagnose, no." But we are having a dialogue with what the body's doing at this present moment in time. And so somebody might come to me, for example, with a bad back, um, and I'm tuning in to see exactly what they need to relieve the problem in the back. And it might be that this is linked to some stress or trauma that happened to them years ago that is
Yeah.
manifesting in that area in their body. And it might be then that they also need to do some other body work or go to another practitioner to have some body work done for that area. Or it might be that, clearing the emotional blockages is enough to kind of change what's going on there for them and help that heal.
So does the kinesiology just find that there is an imbalance, but it doesn't know what that imbalance is? It's just there is something in that part of the person's body.
Yes and no, it depends. I mean, sometimes I'll be working on a client and I will literally put my hands on them and say to them, "What happened when you were 9? There's something here that is going on for you right now, and it's a blockage that occurred when you were 9 or whatever."
Wow.
And they come back with, "Oh gosh, yes, I was sent to boarding school or blah 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 blah, whatever it is." Okay, well, that's coming up to be cleared, and that is having an impact upon what you're experiencing physically in your body. Um, so yeah, it's very individual to that person, to the person I'm treating. I always say it helps get to the root cause of things, because obviously when somebody comes into my treatment room, they've got symptoms and they're showing a symptom picture, but it's like, what's the root cause of that? What's going on?
Yeah.
What's triggered this? Like autoimmune conditions, Jackie, for example, they take about 10 years to manifest fully. So something's going on 10 years ago that's having an impact on developing that autoimmune condition. So it's almost like unraveling a ball of string.
Yeah, and there's a high likelihood that people wouldn't necessarily remember something that happened in
Oftentimes,
childhood that might be the initial cause of that blockage.
yeah, sometimes that is the case, but I have to say, often or mostly, when you say to somebody, or when you're picking up that at that level, they will remember. It's like, whoa, okay, yeah, that happened. That was quite significant, but I've never told anybody about it, or I
Yeah,
thought I dealt with it. I get that a lot as well, because we do think we've dealt with it. Yeah, and our bodies do their best always.
yeah, they do, don't they? They just cope. Um, so there's the muscle testing, but for you to get that information that says something happened around this age, where
Yeah.
does where does that come from? Because that sounds like a more esoteric kind of side to it, a more intuitive, um, dare I say, sort of spiritual side of things.
I guess for me, I always compute everything as energy. So everything's energy. So when a person comes into my treatment room, I start reading their energy. We do this anyway as individuals. I'm sure you do it. we start reading other people's energies. You do it at a party, for example. You go in and you gravitate to some people and you kind of veer away from other people. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they're bad or whatever, but we're always, trying to find that energetic similarity, I guess. So I
Yeah.
think, as a practitioner, and I'm sure you see this, Jackie, as well in your practice, you do tune into that individual. And I guess doing this for the years that I've done it, kind of
You've
you get
honed
more
it.
adept to it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that is
sometimes,
true.
sometimes I think, where does that come from? Where on earth does that come from? Because I have no clue sometimes. It just comes to me.
You're right, because sometimes when I'm coaching, I will get even if the person's saying, I don't know why, blah, 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 that
Mm.
I get the reason is this,
Yeah, yeah.
but I have to kind of obviously not say this is the reason, but ask various questions
Mm.
to almost get them to that realization themselves. So yeah,
Yeah.
I do get what you mean. And it's also down to where people just talk about vibe. Like you just meet a person, it's like, oh no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Interesting. So over the years though, I obviously I've worked with a lot of different healing modalities. So as I said, the kinesiology, um, reflexology, had a bit of Reiki, homeopathy, um, all these different things. But I've also worked practically, I'd say more recently, with diet and supplementation and all of that kind of stuff. And very recently did genetic testing.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's taken years for certain pieces of puzzles to be put together. So it could be that something has worked and it's held for a while, but there's always been an how can I put it, maybe an undercurrent of something or
Yeah.
something keeps coming back. Um, and it's not until I've had this genetic testing that some of the pieces of the puzzle kind of fell together, or it confirmed certain things like
Yeah.
lactose intolerance or inflammation or a tendency or predisposition to inflammation or um, all of those various things. So it kind of explained why a lot of things were going on. And it's just made me wonder whether is it better that people, when they come to you, they actually come having had the diagnostics done. So you know that this person has an impaired ability to clear adrenaline from their system, or they've got a tendency to inflammation, or they've got this. Does that information, is it better that they come with that level of information?
No, not necessarily, because what I'm picking up might be beyond that. So, oh gosh, let me think of an example, Jackie. So when I'm working with somebody, for example, and we've worked together for a few sessions and we're really getting down to the, real root cause of things, a lot of times stuff set up either pre-birth or very early in childhood, very, very early on, or it could be your mother's stuff, but it not necessarily genetics. It might be your mother's fear, when you were in the womb, maybe she was going through a difficult time with her spouse or whatever, that you've picked that up and you've carried that for years and years. And that's impacted your ability to, I don't know, whatever it is that you're seeing me for. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, or it might be that I do pick up, right? Okay, you're lactose intolerant. You need to look at that. So take an enzyme, take the enzyme if you do have it, or avoid it.
Yeah.
So I can pick things like that up as well. So, but not necessarily, going back to your question, it doesn't necessarily mean that I get better results with a client because it might be something completely different to what you've had tested for the genetics. I mean, not to discount the genetic testing, it's very fascinating.
Yeah. But you then,
Especially if you're dealing with very significant illness, you know, some like autoimmune conditions.
yeah. And actually, I have to keep reminding myself that the genetic testing is a predisposition. It's not a what's the word? It's not
Well,
a. It's not saying you have these things. It's saying you
absolutely
have a
not.
propensity for these things. So you
Exactly
need
that.
to be careful not to switch it on.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
had I didn't have any genetic testing done, but I had an illness occur for me in 2019 and it was significant. So there was a significant trauma that happened for me around that time and it triggered my autoimmune. Now that autoimmune didn't have to trigger, you know, so it's almost like your genetics are the gun, your epigenetics are the factors, you know, your lifestyle factors, things that happen to you are the things that pull the trigger. So the trauma for me was what pulled the trigger. But I've got a propensity towards arthritic conditions. That's my genetic makeup. And I know that now because of what triggered, you know, so it helps me treat it, but looking at the trauma and doing some work to unravel that trauma, you know, really helped nail that because that was what triggered it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So all of these healing modalities, I'm going to go out on a limb here, sort of, and say that, well, actually, I could be wrong. I was going to say that all, everything at the root of it comes from some sort of emotional trauma. There might be physical trauma that goes with it. Like, say, if you had a car accident or something like that, that's where I've been
Yeah,
correcting
yeah.
myself. But I'm going to change this. Is it more the emotional or is it physical? So even if it was a car accident, for
Yeah,
instance, and you did do your back in the car
yeah,
accident,
yeah.
is it more that physical trauma or is it the emotion that goes with it? Everything
I
you
would
said.
say both. It's both, but I would put it on its head and say it's an energetic trauma that's stored in your energy field of the whole of that trauma. So emotional, the whole mental, emotional, physical, it's an energy that's created, right? And that trauma then has an impact for some people, you know. Some people might process that really quickly. Some people do actually, you know, but other people can't. I think for humans, I mean, the whole trauma field of trauma is very interesting as well. You know, I've listened to a lot of Peter Levine's work. He's a fascinating chap. He wrote the book Waking the Tiger, which if you've not read, get your hands on a copy. It's fascinating. But
Okay.
he talks about the animal kingdom and how they deal with trauma. They deal with it really effectively because they've not got a cerebral cortex basically, so they're not internalizing it.
They're in
They
the
just
moment, aren't
they're
they?
in the moment, exactly that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can remember watching one of my parents' little terriers slipping on the stairs and it fell down the stair. But what she did was she was a bit stunned because she was an old lady by that point, bless her. She wasn't injured at all. She just shook herself off like this and then went off on with her day and she was fine. So
Yeah.
it's that's the thing of shaking, and this is what Peter Levine talks
Oh,
about.
yeah, the
And there's
somatic
more
stuff as
modality
well.
now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the somatics. So we shake that off. And this is what animals do. Humans, unfortunately, internalize everything, and you know, we want to think about it and process it in our thought and our minds and all of that. So I think that sometimes gets stuck. So we get stuck in freeze mode. You know, this is in the nervous system. We get stuck in that, and that's where issues can occur. You know,
Do you treat all ages?
I do. Yeah. Yes, I do.
Do you find that it's easier to treat children because they may only have one or two sort of traumas, if you get what I mean, or things locked in the body. But the
Absolutely.
older the person gets, it's kind of a lot of detective work to find the root of
Yes.
something.
Yeah, it is. And children don't have they have less ego, they're less invested in what's going on for them. They just want to get on. So treating a child, and especially babies, little ones, real little ones, you know, and if you've got a little one or have other people that are watching have them, grandchildren, etc., get them treated early on with some body work when they're just born, or very early on in their lives to process that birth trauma, because that will stand them in real good stead, for what's
Mm.
what's ahead of them. But yes, they process things much quicker.
But they
It's
also potentially, um, and I'm sort of talking about really significant trauma now, so sort of like abuse type situations and stuff like that. With that, can that get stored in the body though? Because they kind of just need to get, it's like in a survival sort of
oh
way.
yeah, yes,
They need
yeah,
to get on with life and do whatever. So it kind of just gets pushed to the back and they're
yeah,
fine. And then something triggers it to
yeah.
come back.
Yeah, I mean, this is the nervous system. It'll go into freeze mode, and that, sometimes that trauma will go into freeze mode and be stored there for a long time, because they can't process it any other way. They've not got any tools to be able to do that,
Yeah.
you know, little little ones. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's a different,
Yeah.
you know, set of circumstances and a different, you'd be looking at a very different approach, I think, working with. Yeah, but the body, I always say the body keeps, and I think there was a book called it, wasn't there? The body keeps the
The body
score.
keeps the
Yeah,
score.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I always say the body is the barometer of your soul, So whatever's going in your body, it's a reflection of what's going on somewhere else in your energy field.
Okay. So the kinesiology taps into, well, does it tap into your energy field through the muscle
Yeah,
testing?
exactly that.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm tapping into somebody's energy field to be able to figure out what they need at that moment in time, to restore health, restore balance.
And how do you then go on to do that to restore that balance? Like if you found a blockage in the shoulder, what
Yeah.
what would you then do about that imbalance?
So if I was working with, so basically I'm a health kinesiologist and I work with the Bowen technique as well. So I've got lots of different tools in my toolkit, which I can kind of draw upon to work with a client. And I do lots of work distantly as well. So it works very well at a distance, remotely. Um, so I'm tuning into that individual to see. So if you come with a shoulder problem, I'll be looking at exactly when that began, what's going on for you. So I take a detailed consultation from you verbally. I'm observing you to see how you're moving and all of that. And then I'm
Mm.
tuning into you, and that's with muscle testing. Um, and also which I can do remotely as well, and also just kind of tuning in at a deeper level, and I guess that is more tuning in at a energy level to your energy to see, okay, what's going on with this shoulder. And it might be that things present like, okay, this started when you were 21, or something. Did this start at the time when, for some women it's menopausal, sometimes the shoulder, that it presents in menopause. And then I look at the circuitry that's out of balance. So it might be that a lot of shoulder problems actually are small intestine. This is where the small intestine runs a tract through here and around your ear. So it can be, related to that meridian circuit. Um, and then we look at ways in which, right, okay, how can I rebalance this for you now? So that might be that we have to, think about a word together, or it might be that you have to put your hand on it while I'm holding some of my kit. Um, yeah, so lots of different ways, really. Or it might be that you have to go away and take a homeopathic remedy, you have to take a certain supplement, or we have to use magnets. You have to tape a magnet on there for a few days or a week. Or it might be that I actually need to do some Bowen work, the Bowen technique work distantly with you. Yeah.
There's all sorts of things.
So it's tuning in the best thing for you. And I'm always like very much, okay, what's your body's priority today? What do we need to really look at today for your body? And it might be that you're saying, oh, my shoulder really hurts. And I'm like, no, that's not your body's priority. It's presenting with your something going on in your knee, so that is your body's priority for today. But that might have a knock-on effect on this because we're all interlinked, everything's interlinked and related.
Wow. So,
Fascinating.
yeah. And it sounds like that you need to have quite a lot of in-depth knowledge about the body, and like the study for this sounds like it would be very, very in-depth, like all of the systems of the body and how they work. And
Yeah, I mean, again, my kinesiology training was it was a real springboard, and I'm so grateful that I trained in that modality originally because like I said, a springboard to lots of other things. So as part of that training, so I chose health kinesiology, so I went down that route, but then as part of that, I had to train in something called touch for health kinesiology, which is a whole other branch of kinesiology. And then we have to do a lot of hefty training in anatomy, physiology, pathology. I did a little bit of pharmacology as well. But as part of the kinesiology training, it was very focused on traditional Chinese medicine. So we had to learn all of the acupuncture points, every single one, and there are hundreds. To be able, we don't acupuncture them, we don't put a needle in, but what we do is hold the points. So it might be on your arm, there are certain points, your lung meridian, large intestine, that we have to hold in order to rebalance the system in the presence of whatever it is that's stressing it. So we had to learn all of that. And then the Bowen technique, again, that's a whole other modality. So I'm learning lots of different procedures in Bowen, to affect different areas of the body, like the pelvis, the psoas.
I don't really know anything about Bowen technique. So
Maybe that's
what's
another podcast, Jackie.
so yeah, because I know you do so kinesiology, Bowen technique, Reiki, and something beginning with S.
Reiki and Seiki, yeah.
Seiki.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it's
Not
an
heard of that.
energy like Reiki, but it's an Egyptian healing modality. Seiki. Seiki really, so Reiki is the earth ray, so in healing. So Seiki makes up the air, fire, water. So then it's all kind of balanced, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So how how does kinesiology work remotely? Because as I said, when my previous kinesiologist, she would take my hand and she would
Yeah.
do certain things. How would you do that remotely?
So typically in a session, I would be having a chat with somebody as I am with you now, Jackie. So online. So we do that, and then I'm asking them to put their palm of their navel predominantly, and I'm kind of tuning into them. And I use something called finger digit testing, which kind of, I don't know if you can see that. But yes, I'm tuning in and asking lots of questions from my menu. I call it my menu of corrective procedures and things. And I'm saying, okay, for Jackie right now, what do we need to learn? What do we need to know? What do we need to do to balance you right now? And I'm saying, okay, is it in that column? Is it in that one? No, we need that one. Okay, so we're doing this correction today for you. Okay. And then I test everything that we need from my, you can see some of it there. Lots of different kits that I've got in my treatment room. So yeah, so we're doing that whilst we're online. So then might be that you have to think about a word. So you might have to think of something connected in with one of the meridians, like So if we go to the spleen and stomach meridian, you might have to think the word anxiety, for example. And while you're doing that, and I'm thinking that for you too, so we're thinking that together, I'm doing other bits and bobs to correct that imbalance for you using like lots of my kit that I've got. Yeah. So
Interesting. So
and so it is from radionics, which is that is a distant healing modality, radionics. And that's been around for years and years. But it's energy work. So energy doesn't know what distance is really. So as long as I'm tuned into you and I'm able to do that, then we've got a connection and we can kind of work together, you know.
so if you fix that imbalance that day, like how would I maintain what you've
Yeah,
done?
so say we use that example again, anxiety. So this comes up for a lot of people, especially now with what's going on and gone on in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah,
So what that means is it's not saying that we're taking away your anxiety completely, because obviously anxiety is very complex for everybody, what triggers it. What we're doing is we're balancing your body and your energy system in presence of that. So if you were feeling anxious before we corrected it, that will completely throw your energy system and your body into a flap. You'd be, anxiety, anxious, and you would be spinning out, with that. Okay, so once we've corrected it, when you're in the presence of that, oh, I'm anxious, okay, it allows your body to integrate it and cope with it better. So your body's not kind of spinning out, and going crazy when you're in that space.
right. So
So
it actually helps you to manage the anxiety and not let it sort of take you over. But it
yeah,
doesn't mean that you don't have anxiety.
no,
Yeah.
no, yeah.
Okay. So is this, do you end up having, because for me, it sounds like there's always something to work on. So would people need to be seeing you regularly for their lifetime, or like how does it work? Because there's
It
always
depends what we're
something.
working on. Some people, I work on myself regularly. And I guess that's going to be a lifelong thing because I can, I've got the tools to do it. So if something happens that stresses me out, I come back and I work on it. It's like I always liken it to, when a ship comes into harbour and it has its what are they called? The little things plucked off it, the under bit of the ship.
Mhm.
So it's cleaned
Yeah,
basically. The
yeah,
ship's cleaned,
yeah,
yeah. So I always think, right, okay, that's what I want to do for myself on an ongoing basis. So I'm clean, of rubbish.
yeah,
I think individuals and certainly the clients that I treat, they come in when they need it. They feel it into them. And I love that about my work, because it's empowering that individual to recognize, okay, I'm ready for a session
yeah,
now again. I need to deal with this. And sometimes when we've been working with somebody and it's been real heavy stuff, they need to go away and have a rest and integrate that work for a good few months.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if someone hasn't been regularly sort of doing this kind of work to kind of manage and be on top of their stresses and traumas and that kind of thing, obviously when they come to you, it's going to be a huge bag of stuff
Yeah.
that they may need to work through, or is it just you work through the most pressing thing and then you leave
Yeah.
whatever isn't pressing for that day, but then they those other things could still affect them.
Yeah. I mean,
How do you start cleaning? How do you start
how do
cleaning
you,
house?
yeah. Okay. So when I start working with somebody, obviously they come and they tell me, and they've already prepared their consultation form, which I've had. Um, And then we have a dialogue about what's going on for them. And then I will tune in and say to their body, so what is your priority for today? And actually, can we work together today? Most of the time we can. Sometimes the body will say, actually, no. I don't get that often anymore, thankfully, because that's
Wow.
quite difficult managing that, if somebody's come a long way or tuned in or whatever. But sometimes you get a no, and you have to, and I respect that because the body's not ready for it. So, at that point, it's like, okay, when is the body ready for it? Okay, 5 days time. Okay, we need to do this in 5 days.
So,
But generally, yes. So sorry.
sorry, where would that no come from? Like, why would the body not want to?
Because it might be that they've, filled in the consultation form and almost like that started a healing for them. So they've purged a lot of stuff in doing that, and their body might need a bit of a break, a rest. This is in situations where somebody's had a lot of trauma, for example, in their life. But that consultation form has started that healing process for them.
Right. Okay. Sorry,
So
I might have thrown you
yeah,
off there.
no, that's fine. That doesn't happen often really anymore. But yeah, so a person comes in and I test them. So let's test your body's priority for today. What are we doing today? Yeah, so that's how I work really. It's always respecting the body, I think, and the energy system because it knows.
Yeah. But see, I think I would probably have picked up loads of stuff over the years. So it could probably take me to the rest of my life to kind of heal everything I've picked up over the time.
Well, I mean, it's like a lot, most of us, right? We need to be doing some self-work, self-care. We clean our homes, we have our cars MOT'd, we do our laundry. Most people don't do that inner work though, do they? So we need to be doing, or well, we don't need to be, we can choose to do it, we can choose not to do it. That's fine. That's, totally
Yeah.
fine. But as humans and personally, I feel that I want to be doing that work, but a lot of people don't, do they? So they come along and in older age, they are in a bad way. They've got a lot of aches and pains that need to be dealt with, and that those might be to do with these past traumas or whatever.
That they've just collected and stored, collected and
Stored,
stored.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But as a collective, most people don't really know they even need to be doing this work.
No, absolutely not. No, no. I mean, there's a big emergence now, I guess, of people that are becoming more aware and are more aware of what is out there, in terms of the modalities and therapies that are available. Because I think the mainstream medical system is letting people down. Um, I'll not go on too much about that. I
Yeah.
don't want to be
Yeah.
deplatformed, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so they're exploring alternatives. And I think in different countries, like in India, for example, homeopathy is mainstream. It's something that people will seek, for ill health. Whereas in our country, that is, often, poo-pooed, let alone, sought out as an alternative.
So do you use homeopathy as well as part of your toolkit then?
Oh yes, I do absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a trained homeopath. I have done training in homeopathy, but I've not done my full 4 years. But I do use it, yes. So I will test for, for what remedies people need. And that might be something that people have to do as homework, go and take a remedy or a flower remedy.
Yeah. So if I were to start cleaning house, anyone who's listening, if they wanted to start um, leaning into this and starting to do that energetic work, and it doesn't resolve things in 5 minutes, because I know we're a society that tends to want everything fixed
Yeah,
quickly, and
quick fix, yeah.
that's not really how it works. I find this is a journey,
Yeah.
this inner work. But what can someone So I guess what would be the benefits of doing this inner work? Because you could stay in the freeze state and just ignore
Yeah,
what's there. Because when you start doing the healing work, you can sort of, what's the word, disturb all of this stuff, and it all
yeah,
comes out
yeah,
of healing. And healing sounds like, when you just say the word healing, it sounds like it's you just recover from stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Actually, you can actually go through a period where you're a lot worse, you feel a lot worse before you start to feel better. So healing isn't, everyone will say they want healing, not
yeah, yeah,
realizing some of the path is not the prettiest, if you get what I mean.
yeah, yeah.
So where does, sorry, I've talked a lot and gone around the houses. That's how my brain sort of works. But yeah, what's the benefit of me sort of stirring the pot on some of this energetic stuff that I've got going on that I might not be aware of?
Stirring the pot. I think, people come to me because they've got something going on that's wrong, or they're perceiving it as wrong. It might be that their body's healing actually, but they're thinking, oh, this is a symptom. Symptoms are often the last stage of healing, or can be, but they've got a symptom that's niggling them, so they come along. So it's very focused, I guess. I would say for stirring the pot, I don't know, maybe I kind of like to use a different expression, Jackie, maybe
That
just
was the
a
wrong
lot.
terminology, but it's all I could think of at the time.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, for example, I always say to my clients, slow down a bit. If you can spend 5 minutes every day on your own in silence, not with your phone around you, not listening to music, just silently, just in your own space, and see how that changes you. Do that every day for a month and see
Mm,
how quietly, how that would quieten your brain, quieten your mind, you know, or, or go and get your feet on the lawn, plant your feet on the lawn, do that every day for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and see how that helps you. Looking at these small things, this is what I would always say to people who are starting out on a journey like this. Look at what's irking you. What do you want to change? Okay, how can we make small steps to change that? And then look at these simple things, spending the 5 minutes a day, doing some grounding with your feet on the earth, laying on the earth. It's great. We need to be connecting with the earth more.
mm.
We've all got in us our self-healing abilities. We all have that, absolutely. That's innate in all humans. It's buried deeper in some people, but it's still there. So all of these things will help reawaken that.
Yeah.
Drinking pure water. So many of my clients don't do that. They don't filter their water. Filter your water, get a good filtration system and hydrate, and really hydrate. Take some sea salt with your water. These little simple things that people don't think of.
Yeah.
And that often kickstarts amazing healing for people.
And it
And that's without
also,
even going into the supplements and looking at all of that.
yeah,
And it's like something like fasting. Fasting's free, right? It's the
yeah.
absence of food. And it's phenomenal what fasting can do for people.
And is it that, because I find this when I go on walks,
Mm.
that when the noise stops, like when you slow down and, like you say, there's this silence or there's this quietening,
Yeah.
you can almost realize what you've been ignoring. Like it's almost like the noise, when the noise
Mm.
stops,
Yes.
actually, that started hurting when X. It's like you get given the information if you
Yeah. Yeah.
allow the space for it to come in.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, and walking's great. I always liken it to a walk. It's like a moving meditation walking for me. I mean, walking or swimming, I love both. but walking in nature is great, isn't it? And
Yeah,
actually, what you're doing with walking as well, you're expending cortisol. So that's great. You know, you're getting moving.
yeah. So you might not be able to answer this actually, because it's more of the genetics, epigenetics thing. But if you have triggered a predisposition, so you've switched on a gene,
Yeah,
can you switch it back off again?
I think you can. Yes, I think you can. I mean, that this was what. So when my autoimmune triggered, I knew what had triggered it, and I thought, well, I know what's triggered this. I can untrigger it, you know.
Yeah.
So I do think we can. Yes, epigenetics,
Wow.
which
Okay.
you know I might get absolutely hammered for saying that, but I don't know. I think you know I like to think a lot of things are possible given the right conditions. And when you do that, when you give your body the right information and the right environment, amazing things can happen. Like going back to the fasting, you know, if you fast for 24 hours, your gut is regenerated. If you fast for 3 days, your whole immune system's reset. This is huge, and this is science. This is science. You know, you can read about this.
Wow.
People are curing, you know, very, very significant illness by simply fasting. And it's, I mean, I do fasting as part of my lifestyle. And I did it, well, I'm doing it a lot more. And it's great. It's amazing. You know, autophagy kicks in about 17 hours. So autophagy is when you know, your dead cells have been sluiced off and gotten rid of. So to 17 hours without food, your body kicks that off, that process. So you can see the ramifications of that for health, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Science in practice, especially with some of the women lady clients who I've been working with, and you know, in terms of hormonal imbalance, it's phenomenal.
Okay. But not intermittent fasting.
Well, it would be intermittent. So yes, it's a. I mean, I follow Mindy Peltz, which and she's great. So she does fasting for women. So fast. Her book's called Fast Like a Girl. So she will intermittent fast, use intermittent fasting at different times of your cycle because that's
What's
really
her,
important for women.
what's her name again? Mandy Phelps.
Mindy Peltz. I can pop you a thing in the
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And maybe we can
Um,
put it in the show notes, because I was once told intermittent fasting not brilliant for women.
No, it's
'Cause
great. It's absolutely great. And women should be doing it because of our cycle is so up and down with the progesterone, the estrogen at different times of the month. You know, so intermittent fasting actually works really well for us because yeah, there's certain times of the month where we should not be fasting because we need that progesterone, for example, before we menstruate. We need that progesterone to be kicking in, you know. So fasting when you're needing your progesterone to kick in is not a good idea.
so maybe it's not a good idea if you're perimenopausal.
No, it's
Perhaps.
absolutely great when you're perimenopausal. It's
Gosh.
fasting. I mean, I've worked with clients and their cycle has been renewed at perimenopause with fasting.
Okay. Interesting.
So yes, it's great. I really recommend Mindy. She's got loads on their YouTube.
Okay. Yeah. So we can put that in the show notes as well,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
And also Waking the Tiger. So I am going to
Gosh,
call
I
this
feel like we've
podcast,
covered loads of
yeah,
stuff.
kinesiology and more. Um, and more about, I guess, the wisdom of the body and the
Yeah,
that whole thing around the body keeping the score, and just the wonders of it and what we can do to help
yeah,
ourselves
yeah.
that we're not aware of.
That's my passion, really. That's my passion about being in this world. You know, it's opening that door for people to realize actually that they've got that within them. They've got all of that within them, and just activating it or tweaking the body a little bit, having some help when you need it, but then go away and do all these little things that are going to maintain your health for years to come. And I also probably, it would be good to add, like for me, one of my other passions is, feeling great. We're so entrained in this feeling okay, we feel okay, People
Yeah.
don't realize what it feels to feel really good, Like, for example, if you're out and you walk and it's a lovely day and you're feeling great, that is when we should be feeling like that more. We shouldn't be just feeling this average, oh, I'm just getting by kind of thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's another one of my passions, getting people to start feeling good.
And maybe it's because so many people have been feeling so sort of for so long that that's just the set point, and they don't expect to feel any better than that. That's just the way
Yeah,
it's almost just that's just the way it is. Everybody,
yeah.
or they put it down to age. Well,
Yeah,
you
well,
know,
both, right? I mean, yeah, I see that. Oh, it's my age. Oh, it doesn't have to be. That it winds me up. Doesn't have to be your age. Who says it? Who says we have to age?
yeah, but it's you've got to have the will, because it's not, that's what I mean. It's not a quick fix, and it's not as easy as just popping a pill, which is what,
No,
and so you have got to be committed to, you've got to be committed to your healing. So say, even for myself, it's kind of make sure you get the right sleep, make sure you
yeah, yeah,
eat the right foods for your body, you move your body in the right way, you um, take the supplements that you need,
yeah,
and high quality supplements. And like you were saying, even down to the water, to filter the water, put some salts in your water. It can feel like sometimes this is just too much. On top of
yeah,
all these different supplements and making sure I sleep here and do this and do that, I also have to do a full-time job. I also have to have
yeah.
dependents that I look after. I also have to do, and so sometimes it becomes, it's just,
It's too much.
I'd
Yeah,
rather pop the pill because this is a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
work. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it can be difficult, but I think, simplifying it as much as possible as well. So okay, you're popping how many pills? Right, can we simplify that down a bit then? Could you take one that encompasses all of those things? I think having these hacks, isn't it, when you're busy in life, how can we make this easier? Okay, so rather than having a countertop thing that, a water jug that we have to empty, let's install a filter at the main so it has
yeah,
more longevity. All of these hacks. But I think it's interesting, isn't it? Once we start feeling, it's like when you're on a diet and you start losing weight, then you're like, "Way, I'm losing weight. I've got that momentum then going.
yeah.
Like fasting." So I think, I'm not saying I'm addicted to it because I think that's quite negative saying you're addicted, but I love that feeling that I know when like I'm in peak autophagy and it feels blooming out amazing. I feel superhuman, you know. And
I
you
must
kind
try it.
of you get into that and you're like, oh my goodness, I want more of this. It's like my brain's firing. I feel like I could write a whole book, in an afternoon, that kind of thing. So I think
Wow.
once you've started feeling these changes and you know that this works, excellent, right? You're going to do it more. Don't get me wrong. I still have days where I think, oh, I just want to go and eat a cake or have,
Yeah.
something like that. So allow yourself that sometimes. Again, I think it's about balance, isn't it, too?
Yeah, and it's kind of like, I guess, the 80-20, like
Yeah,
most of the
yeah.
time, yeah, but then, there is going to be the odd occasion where you do, and then
Sometimes
don't
do
beat
it.
yourself up for that. And if you're going to
Exactly.
do it, enjoy it.
Exactly. Exactly. Because there's a whole psychology around that as well, isn't there? If
Yeah.
you're telling your body, and I can fall into that trap absolutely, of, oh, I shouldn't be, It's like,
Yeah.
and you know, my partner's great at that because he loves his treats and things, you know. So he's like, oh, don't worry about it. But yeah, you know, I always say, yeah, 80-20 rule. I always kind of think I'm 90-10 maybe,
Yeah. So,
but yeah, it's balance.
so anything about kinesiology that we haven't covered, bringing it back round to that?
Oh gosh, I don't know, Jackie. I mean, there's so many different aspects to it and facets to it. Um, yeah, I mean, there are obviously, I've said there are lots of different types of kinesiology. So the modality one that I trained in is very broad based. There's lots of different things on my menu that we can use to correct imbalances. But the premise is we identify an imbalance and then we utilize lots of our kit. It might be that I'm using a body biochemical, a hormone, and then we identify the circuitry that's out of balance and we hold points on that circuitry with the presence of whatever it is that we've found to bring the body back into a state of balance.
And when you say there are loads of different types of kinesiology, are they not all related to health though?
Yeah, they are. I mean, there's like systematic kinesiology. There's the brain gym, educational kinesiology. So they're
Okay,
very much used in educational settings. Yeah.
interesting. Wow. So we've gone sort of, yeah, into all sorts of different topics about the
Lots of
body,
realms.
but it does feel like it just comes back to this whole energy thing and um healing from traumas and balancing the body through that.
Yeah, yeah. I think ultimately that's what it's about, isn't it? Maintaining a level of which our bodies do naturally, you know, they try and maintain a state of homeostasis, you know, of level. So blood pressure might go up, okay, then hormones kick in to like lower it, you know. We're all
Yeah,
and I always go back to the fact that, you know, our body does its best. It will.
yeah. So what would, in that situation, the blood pressure goes up, something causes the blood pressure to go up, but what would prevent it from coming back down again?
Prolonged stress.
Right.
So we get into that, you know, parasympathetic state, which most of us are in most of the time. So we're in that sympathetic state, which is high stress. We need to be in this parasympathetic state. So it's looking at ways in which we can get into that parasympathetic state. And, you know, healing our traumas is one thing, but things like spending 5 minutes on our own every day, getting our feet on the lawn, walking in nature, you know, anything that we can do to get that parasympathetic state back in. Yeah, it's good for our health as an overall.
Yeah, so it sounds like if we could um, get control of our nervous systems by these, um, my friend calls them micro moments,
Yeah,
um, where we go off and do a walk or we do whatever, that could do a lot to help us to start healing because we're balancing being in sympathetic and parasympathetic states. And a lot of it is how quickly we can bring ourselves back into the parasympathetic.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when you're in parasympathetic, you know, your body can digest properly, it can assimilate properly, it can rest properly, it can heal properly. You know, if you've got inflammation in the body, if you're in sympathetic the whole time, then that's going to feed that inflammation. If you're in parasympathetic more, then that's going to allow your body to kind of reset. So things like the fasting, that there's a mild stress that occurs when you fast, but then your body switches into parasympathetic. So again, then the healing can occur, and that's when the magic starts to happen. You know, when you're in parasympathetic, and I see that in Bowen when I'm doing a Bowen therapy session for somebody. The moment they're called Bowen moves, and the moment I do those on the lower back, there's two little moves on the lower back. The body just goes and it
Yeah,
rests. Yeah. You see that in, you will have had that in the therapies that you've had.
I've had that in massage. Like I
Yeah,
feel like when they get to the lower back, there's a particular point sort of on the lower back, and I feel like it just releases
right.
everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
then when the parasympathetic, but that's the first point that we touch on the body when we're doing Bowen, and those little two moves, it just like, yeah, that body's in parasympathetic state now. And then, it can then welcome the treatment, and the treatment can be taken on by the body. So, and this in kinesiology, when I ask the body, can we work together today? What's the priority for today? So that priority will allow the body to get back into parasympathetic state, and then that healing can happen.
wow,
There's a lot. We've talked about a
yeah,
lot there.
yeah. But there is a lot. It's just, yeah, bringing it back to what we can do to help ourselves around the little micro moments, and being
Yeah,
mindful of how long we stay in stressful states, and getting ourselves back into, is it rest and digest,
exactly.
um
Yeah,
parasympathetic state, and then for maybe like the bigger things, like the thornier things that we're not going to be able to move on our own,
yeah,
we get the help from people like you.
yeah,
um
exactly. And people like you with the, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, that
yeah,
makes a whole lot of sense. And it's simple, but we're just not taught to think in that way. We're just not conditioned to. So it feels like it's counterproductive when we say things like go out for a 5-minute walk or do this. It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
sound like, well, that's not going to help my bad shoulder or
yeah.
whatever. It's difficult for people to make that connection.
Yeah, it really
Yeah,
is. And it's like, we're a culture, aren't we, in the UK, that we grin and bear it. We just stiff upper lip and
yeah,
all of that. We just get on with things. I mean, I'm from Yorkshire, and that was very much instilled in, my lineage. Yeah, gritty
yeah,
northerners, we just crack on, but actually, just cracking on, you will crack up later if you carry
yeah,
on in that vein, you kind of have to deal with that. You have to deal with life, right?
yeah. And it's so where I want to be with this is that I'm healed enough that even going into old age, it's almost like I want to go out like my great grandmother did, which
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
I'm tired, I go to sleep, and that's that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
If
yeah,
you get what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah, I do absolutely. And I always say to people, I want a good death. I
Yeah,
don't want to be lingering. I just want to keel over and that's it. I'm done. And that
yeah,
for me, that's important though, isn't it? It is.
yeah,
That's a yeah. So it's not just about health while we're here, is it? It's health in dying, which is again, a subject that we just don't go there, do we, in our
yeah,
culture?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But that's what makes, I think, the healing important. That's what makes it
yeah,
important to go on that journey, so that while you're alive, you can thrive as much as possible, but
yeah,
you also
yeah.
transition out of this life in a
Yeah.
in a better way, hopefully.
Better
Yeah,
way, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we started with kinesiology, but we kind of went into all different things, which I think is perfectly fine, because I think it's giving people what they need rather than just keeping to the topic of kinesiology for the sake of
Yeah,
keeping to the topic. I like to go where the conversation wants to go, because that's what people probably need to hear. So
yeah.
I've let it, I tend to let it do that.
Evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I may change the title of the
yeah.
podcast a bit. Um, is there anything that you wanted to say, cover, that wasn't touched on?
I think we've touched on a lot of things. I mean, I think for me, again, it's going back to the self-care, just these little steps. I would urge everybody to, especially while the weather's nice, go out there and put your feet on some grass somewhere, get your water filter, you know, get the hydration in you. All of these little self-care tips that are going to make you feel better, really.
Yeah.
And keep looking, you know, if you are battling with some real significant illness, keep looking, keep researching. You will find what you need, you know, in you and out there. There is so much out there now to access, so many, you know, avenues of information for people to access. And bear in mind that your body's amazing, you know, and it will heal given the right ingredients. So I
Yeah.
would
So,
urge everybody to keep going. Yeah.
and off the back of that, I feel like I want to say, don't stop doing what you're doing from an, say if it's allopathic remedies, like you need to take the painkillers, you need to do whatever you need to do. Don't
Yeah.
stop
Yeah.
doing that,
Yeah.
but inject these other self-care things as well,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
will speed up the healing, but also may open up some of these other avenues for you to assist you with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, taking allopathic medicine, sometimes we have to do it, you know, like the pain relief, for example. Is it kinder to your body to relieve that pain when it's in that condition and it needs some rest and respite? It's
Yeah.
kind, isn't it? You're being kind. So, you know, I see a lot of holistic practitioners beating themselves up for that. And I do too sometimes, you know, I'm like, oh, I want to find a natural way. And I mostly do, you know, but sometimes if I've got a real bad migraine and I need it gone because I need to function and it's kind, you know, to do that, then you have to, you know, you have to take the medication sometimes. Don't beat yourself up for that. But, you know, equally, if you're on long-term medication like the pain relief, then you know start researching, start doing your research and looking
Yeah.
at alternatives too, because there's
It
so
leads
much.
to other, potentially long term, it's not good to.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Good. So where can people find you?
So I have a website, and you can find all my social channels on my website, but that is it's www.complete-balance.co.uk. And I guess we can put a link in the
Yeah,
thing.
we'll put a link definitely in the show notes for that. So
Yeah,
but you are on social media as well.
I am on social media. I'm on Telegram, Twitter. I've got a small Facebook page, but I'm not really using that. I tend to put most of my content through my website. So I've
Okay.
got a blog page on that, which I publish lots of different things about health. I've just published one about swimming in swimming pools. That's really important for the summer with the
Yeah.
chlorine and things. So things that people can
Yeah.
do to counter that. Yeah, so I try and publish stuff kind of every few weeks on there. I think interesting info. But I am also on Telegram, I'm quite active on my Telegram channel as well. So.
So you feel like, I wouldn't describe you as a kinesiologist, but more of a functional, holistic therapist in all sorts of different modalities.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? You have to be careful what you call yourself because of, you know, insurance purposes and all of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I kind of like to say I've got a tool bag and that tool bag consists of all my training and experience and all of that. So if a person comes to me for a session, whether it's in person in Herefordshire or online throughout the world, um, I kind of meet them where they're at, look at what's going on for them, and then really kind of talk to them about the best approach for them, you know, with what I can offer them. So yeah, whether
Brilliant.
that's kinesiology or whether it's you know, doing some bone work, some body work, whatever it is. And sometimes, you know, it's you know, we do some sessions and then I have to say to them, right, okay, I think what would be good for you is to find a therapist near where you are, you know, to go and have some hands-on. So yeah,
Yeah.
it depends on individual again, really.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Fascinating conversation. It's played into all of the things I know and trust and love and need to get better at doing, especially the micro moments. I do need to get better at doing.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. again, if you found this conversation interesting and fascinating, please do like, share and subscribe. There's been lots in this conversation that will be of use to so many people, I think, beyond kinesiology. And maybe we do have to have a chat again about bowing technique at some point.
Well,
So
thank you, Jackie. Thanks for having me.
thank you for coming, and thank you for such a fascinating conversation. Please don't go away. We'll say goodbye offline, but I will stop the recording now. Thank you for watching, everyone.